The terrifying pre-flood worlds, echoes before history, before pyramids pierced the skies, before kings etched names in stone. Something older, something lost, might have existed. Lost worlds whisper from oceans, jungles, and mountains, fragments of civilizations predating recorded history. Dubbed pre-flood, their true identities, narratives, and deities remain veiled. Their ruins defy explanation, their technologies seem out of place, and their myths are chilling. Who were the people who flourished before flood stories permeated every ancient culture? Why do origin tales frequently speak of a great catastrophe, colossal beings, and divine retribution? This isn't the narrative of Atlantis, but rather a look into what may have preceded it. Join us as we explore the most unsettling tales of pre-flood civilizations, potentially memories rather than myths, far more terrifying than we've imagined. The Watchers of Mount Hermon. High in the Middle East's rugged mountains, a region sculpted by time and wind, ancient secrets are whispered. These lands, where myth and history converge, have captivated poets, prophets, and scholars for ages. Among the oldest and most perplexing tales is that of the Watchers. The Book of Enoch, a Jewish text over 2,000 years old, provides a haunting account of these celestial entities who descended to earth before the Great Flood. Their domain, according to the text, was not just physical, but spiritual, a space between the divine and the earthly. Sent to observe humanity from a distance, they instead chose to descend. The story describes 200 watchers landing on Mount Hermon, a peak bordering Lebanon, Syria, and Israel. On its silent, snow-capped slopes, they vowed to take human wives and share forbidden knowledge. Enoch's text depicts this event as both marvelous and tragic, marking a cosmic fracture. The choice of Mount Hermon is significant. It has been sacred for millennia, known as the abode of gods in Canaanite tradition. Ancient temple remnants cling to its summit, weathered but unsettling, lonely altars aligned with celestial paths, where stars seem to hang lower. Archaeological surveys reveal layers of occupation dating to the Neolithic period, but these findings don't fully explain the mountain's mythic weight. Local legends, both Christian and Islamic, echo tales of divine encounters. Pilgrims report strange lights and voices, and even military personnel describe inexplicable sightings and unease. Is this merely the power of a deeply embedded story, or something more? The Watcher's story, found in Enochian, Gnostic, Islamic, and esoteric traditions, grows stranger when considering their impact. They are said to have taught humanity secrets of the heavens and earth, including metallurgy, warfare, and astronomy. Some credit them with the dawn of civilization, accelerating human development with divine knowledge fragments. But their offspring with human women were giants, Nephilim, whose immense power corrupted the world. Violence and dangerous knowledge spread, and the earth suffered. The Great Flood in this myth was a cleansing reset. These profound ideas suggest that a civilization, or something akin to one, may have predated our earliest empires, born from an encounter beyond the human. While many scholars view Enoch symbolically, an allegory of forbidden knowledge and broken order, suggesting the Watchers and Nephilim are metaphors, others disagree. Some fringe researchers, influenced by ancient astronaut theory, propose the Watchers were not angels but beings from another world or dimension, their descent literal. The advanced knowledge they shared, they argue, points to contact with a superior intelligence. Mount Hermon, in this perspective, becomes an ancient landing site, a portal between realms, its location near the 33rd parallel north, a line linked to mystery and power, seen as no coincidence. Skeptics dismiss these claims as pseudoscience, citing lack of evidence and misinterpretation of ancient texts. Yet the story persists, echoing across cultures, the idea of divine beings sharing world-altering knowledge before vanishing. From the Anunnaki to the Titans, from the Devas to the sky gods, could they all stem from a shared, forgotten memory? What secrets lie beneath Mount Hermon's stones or in its caves? The Watcher's domain is a tale and a mirror, reflecting desires for guidance and elevation, alongside warnings about the price of knowledge. We may never know the truth of that ancient mountain, but the winds still whisper, and the silence still watches. There are more forgotten domains to explore. Tartaria, Echoes in the steppes. Leaving the chilling whispers of the watchers, our journey turns eastward into the windswept steppes of Central Asia. Here, where the land meets the endless sky, a memory stirs beneath the surface. Tartaria. At first, the name feels like a medieval invention, a realm too vast and advanced for our historical understanding. But a closer look reveals something peculiar. For centuries, European and Asian maps marked huge territories as Tartaria, sometimes a loose confederation, other times a powerful empire stretching from the Urals to the Pacific. Who were these Tartarians, and why did they disappear so abruptly from history? Early Renaissance maps depicted Tartaria with warnings of unknown peoples and strange creatures, labeling vast areas as Great Tartary, or noting here dwell giants and land of cyclopean ruins. As exploration expanded, these regions remained largely inaccessible to Europeans, few venturing north, fewer returning. But long before these maps, before modern history sought to define borders and erase anomalies, the region's ancient inhabitants left clues. Massive earth mounds, enigmatic megalithic ruins, and architectural fragments scattered across the steppes. Some structures, weathered by time, seem beyond the capabilities of known nomadic cultures. Stones too heavy without modern equipment, precise celestial alignments, underground complexes of unknown purpose. Were these later works by groups like the Scythians or Mongols, or an older as yet undiscovered layer of history? In recent years, fringe theorists have revived the idea of a vast Tartarian civilization predating global flood myths. They highlight unusual architecture worldwide, colossal, well-crafted structures often attributed to later builders, but showing advanced design elements. Ornate vaulted ceilings in Siberian cathedrals, precisely aligned star forts, and basements filled with silt, suggesting catastrophe rather than decay. Could Tartaria have been more than a medieval empire? Perhaps a remnant of something much older? A civilization reaching technological and intellectual peaks before a global cataclysm? Mainstream historians remain cautious, arguing Tartaria was a general term for little understood lands, and that cited structures have plausible later origins, with phenomena like flooded basements explained by natural factors. They suggest mysteries dissolve with closer examination. However, some questions linger. Why did 18th and 19th century maps depict Tartaria as an active political entity even when it wasn't in diplomatic records? Why do explorers' journals from that time describe strange, ancient ruins and cities, yet these accounts are largely forgotten or dismissed? Then there are the quiet legends in villages across the region. Tales of tall, pale builders who controlled lightning, vanished underground during a great flood, of cities swallowed whole. Some researchers propose Tartaria might be a linguistic echo of an older tradition, not a political empire, but a fragmented cultural memory of a time when humanity was more knowledgeable, when the steppes were a vibrant center, now lost. Here, amidst the cold winds and shifting sands, the mystery of the great Tartarian ancestors persists, not in a single place, but in a pattern of erased names, misunderstood ruins, and histories that don't quite fit. The deeper one looks, the more it feels as if a crucial part of our shared past has been edited out. Was Tartaria merely a geographical label, or does it point to a forgotten civilization, one that thrived before the seas rose? The stars shifted their meaning, and the flood reset the world. If it existed, if Tartaria's ancestors built wonders now hidden or misidentified, what did they know that we don't? What did they foresee? The steppes hold their silence. The ruins remain mute, but beneath the dust and denial, the truth waits. Let's continue. The path darkens and the echoes of the pre-flood world grow louder. Arctose, a polar civilization buried in ice. As Tartaria's echoes fade into the steppes' silence, our path turns far north, beyond Siberian forests and ancient maps, into a realm veiled in ice and myth, the Arctic. Here, in this land of twilight and glaciers, whispers tell of an almost unimaginable lost polar civilization, a world once warm and vibrant, long before the Earth's tilt brought perpetual winter. Some call it Arctose, others Hyperborea, Ultima Thule, or the land beyond the north wind. Today, the Arctic is an extreme, forbidding world. But was it always so? Ancient Greek historians like Herodotus and Pindar spoke of a land far north where the sun rarely set, where a noble people lived in peace for a millennium. These Hyperboreans were said to be immensely wise, living in harmony, untouched by conflict. Their civilization, according to these early accounts, existed long before Egypt or Babylon, perhaps even before the flood. Initially, these claims seemed like poetic fancy. But in the last century, evidence has emerged challenging our view of the deep past. Arctic ice cores, spanning tens of thousands of years, show periods of dramatic climate shifts, including brief windows when polar regions were temperate, even lush. Pollen samples from beneath Greenland and Antarctic ice suggest forests once grew where snow now lies. Could these myths be distant memories of a real place, now buried under ice? Some geologists point to the Pleistocene epoch, when Earth's axis might have shifted cataclysmically, causing the habitable Arctic to plunge into sudden winter. More controversial ideas propose the North Pole was once in a different location, displacing entire continents. In this view, the polar civilization was a real society, raced by planetary upheaval. But if Arctose existed, where are the ruins? This question continues to intrigue explorers and theorists. Satellite imagery of certain Arctic areas reveals puzzling formations beneath the ice, circles, geometric shapes, and what some interpret as artificial ridges. While many scientists attribute these to natural phenomena like ice ridges or geological formations, others are less certain. A particularly enigmatic case is in the Franz Josef Land archipelago, where strange, seemingly architectural megalithic stones have been reported by Russian expeditions, findings often classified. Were they merely military surveys, or did they discover something hidden? Adding to the mystery is the recurring presence of polar civilizations in esoteric traditions worldwide. Hindu cosmology places the mythical Mount Meru at the Earth's center near the pole. Norse legends speak of Asgard and the Bifrost Bridge in the far north. Tibetan texts mention Shambhala, a sacred realm linked to the polar axis, a place of ancient knowledge. Even Plato's account of Atlantis hints at a land opposite the Pillars of Hercules, potentially at the other pole, veiled in ice and time. Could these diverse accounts be fragments of a shared memory, a civilization so ancient that only its shadow remains in myth? Fringe researchers have long speculated on a polar origin for civilization. This theory suggests Arctose, or its real-world counterpart, was the cradle of knowledge, the source of geometry, astronomy, and metallurgy for ancient cultures. As catastrophe approached, flood, ice age, or pole shift, inhabitants fled south, founding new civilizations in Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and Mesoamerica. But where is the proof? Some point to uncanny similarities in ancient mythologies. Sky gods, knowledge bearers arriving by sea, cultures appearing seemingly fully formed. Others note the widespread reverence for the North as sacred. Skeptics argue these are coincidences, cultural diffusion, or psychological needs to imagine distant origins. They warn that polar civilization theories lack solid evidence and verge on fantasy. Yet the questions persist. Why do so many ancient sources describe a warm, inhabited North? Why the fixation on a place of purity and knowledge beyond the Arctic Circle? And what lies beneath the ice in unexplored regions? The idea of a civilization thriving at the top of the world before the flood seems impossible, but as our understanding of climate, geology, and myth evolves, so too does the possibility of something there, something forgotten or meant to be. We follow the cold winds deeper into the silence of the oldest ice. What is hidden beneath? A myth? A people? A warning? Let's keep exploring. The pre-flood world is only beginning to reveal itself. The Empire of Pan, lost beneath the Pacific waves. Leaving the icy silence of the polar north, our journey turns south toward warmth and water, toward echoes of a different forgotten greatness. Beneath the Pacific's restless waves, in a realm once deemed empty and remote, lies the whispered memory of a vast and powerful civilization. Its name isn't on modern maps or carved on surviving monuments, yet it surfaces repeatedly in ancient myths, cryptic inscriptions, and visions of submerged lands. the Empire of Pan. To see the Pacific today is to behold the largest, deepest ocean, stretching from Asia to the Americas. But in the distant past, some believe it hosted a thriving, advanced civilization, now lost beneath the waves. The name Pan is often linked to Mu, a legendary sunken continent proposed by Augustus Le Plongeon in the 19th century, based on claims that Maya inscriptions spoke of a civilization's origin west of the sea. While mainstream archaeologists dismiss Mu as speculative fiction, others find the pattern in global folklore too widespread to ignore. Polynesian traditions tell of Hawaii, a mystical ancestral homeland. Japanese legends speak of Nihon Kai no Kuni, the land beneath the sea. Micronesian stories recall gods who ruled from a now submerged island chain, lost to rising waters. Could these be fragments of a larger truth? A lost civilization that once dominated the Pacific Basin? The Pacific's scattered islands, Easter Island, the Marquesas, the Solomons, hold clues that still perplex researchers. Nan Madol, for instance, a massive megalithic complex on Micronesian coral reefs, built with huge basalt pillars arranged into canals and platforms. Its builders are unknown. Local legends speak of sorcery and stones summoned from afar. The basalt, weighing tons, was brought from miles away without clear transportation methods. Was Nan Madol an isolated marvel or a surviving outpost of a larger, vanished empire? According to fringe theorists, the Empire of Pan was not a regional kingdom, but a global force, a maritime superpower that mastered tides and stars, spreading knowledge, language, and architecture worldwide before the flood. Pan, in this view, was a mother culture, its envoys reaching Mesoamerica, India, and Mesopotamia, sowing civilization's seeds. Intriguingly, similar pyramid-like structures are found across Pacific islands, tiered, truncated, and often aligned celestially. These architectural echoes suggest a shared origin, potentially the fingerprints of Pan. Skeptics argue such similarities are natural, arising from humans independently solving similar problems in similar environments. But why do so many sites, thousands of miles apart, speak of a cataclysm, a sudden deluge? Why does the memory of a vanished land, though called by different names, with eerily similar features, persist in isolated Pacific Rim cultures? Geological evidence offers tantalizing possibilities. During the last glacial maximum, sea levels were over 400 feet lower, exposing continental shelves now submerged. The Sunda Shelf, the Sahul Shelf, and other submerged rises could have hosted human settlements. Could these drowned lands have been part of the Empire of Pan? Some researchers point to the Bimini Road and Yonaguni Monument, claimed by alternative historians as ancient city remnants. Mainstream geologists attribute these to natural processes, but others note their unnatural symmetry and structure. Whether natural or not, their underwater presence raises questions. Then there are linguistic anomalies, shared root words, myths, and motifs linking Polynesia to South America or Japan to Peru. Thor Heyerdahl's Kon-Tiki voyage showed ancient transoceanic contact was possible. Might Pan's builders have done the same, not as wanderers but as rulers? A particularly haunting legend comes from Easter Island, home of the Moai statues. Oral tradition speaks of the Hanau Epe, long-eared sea arrivals who brought unknown knowledge and building methods, ruled and vanished after a mysterious conflict. Were they survivors of a greater civilization seeking refuge? No one knows for sure. Yet as we map ocean floors with increasing precision, we find anomalies. Straight lines, seemingly artificial ridges, and hidden structures. Is the Empire of Pan awaiting rediscovery, or was it always a memory, a warning from a time before time? If Pan existed, what caused its fall? The flood, tectonic upheaval, or an internal collapse? The Pacific remains silent, its waves washing over a potentially forgotten empire's bones. But beneath the coral and current, truth waits. Let's continue. The world before the flood still has stories to share. Antarctica, a city buried beneath the ice. From Pan's drowned legacy, we drift into Earth's silent depths, to its most remote, desolate frontier. Antarctica. Cloaked in perpetual cold, walled by glaciers and miles of ice, It seems untouched by time, too hostile for life, too isolated for history. Yet beneath its frozen surface, some believe something extraordinary might be hidden. A pre-flood city built by unknown hands. Antarctica spans over 5 million square miles, larger than Europe, alien in its stillness. Its ice sheets hold 90% of Earth's fresh water, reaching depths of over 2 miles. No trees, no ancient ruins rise above the ground. But what if the ruins are below? The idea of an ancient Antarctic city seems implausible. Science says it's been ice-covered for millions of years. But recent findings complicate this. Ice cores and sediment show Antarctica wasn't always frozen. Around 12,000 years ago, during the Younger Dryas, temperatures spiked dramatically, potentially supporting a temperate climate with rivers, forests, and possibly human life. Satellite scans by NASA and others reveal strange anomalies beneath the ice. Geometric shapes, symmetrical ridges, massive dome-like structures. One debated site near the Ellsworth Mountains shows patterns suggestive of artificial architecture. Right angles, layered elevations, uniformity. Scientists call these intriguing but inconclusive, suggesting subglacial volcanoes or rock formations. But others see something more unsettling. Theories of an ancient Antarctic civilization aren't new. The 16th century Peary race map, based on older sources, shows Antarctica's coastline free of ice, with surprising accuracy of deltas, inlets, and mountains. How were these details recorded centuries before modern exploration and before the ice? Some believe the map is a remnant of an older cartographic tradition, from civilizations predating recorded history. Could this Antarctic city's builders have been the source of such knowledge, watching the sea freeze, their temples entombed? Legends from distant cultures echo this. Andean whispers of a white southern land ruled by ice gods who vanished. Vedic references to a city of mirrors in the far south. Hopi tales of a world beneath the world. Still, no conclusive evidence. No ruins, no translated carvings has been found. Access to Antarctica's interior is restricted, expeditions rare. Treaties prohibit excavation without scientific purpose, and harsh conditions limit access. Yet strange stories persist. In 2002, a team near Lake Vostok reported unexplained magnetic anomalies beneath the ice, their findings classified. In 2016, a private satellite company released images of a triangular structure protruding from an ice shelf. Within days, images were removed without explanation. Is this misinterpretation, optical illusions, fueled imagination? Perhaps. But what if there's more? Some researchers propose the Antarctic city wasn't built by Homo sapiens, but an earlier intelligent life form, pre-human, who developed during a warm period and vanished as Earth shifted. Others link the enigma to a global cataclysm around 10,800 BC, a flood obliterating civilizations, leaving only myths and scattered ruins. Could the city beneath the ice be one of those lost capitals, swallowed by time and frost, awaiting discovery? We may never know. The ice is deep, silence vast, secrets hidden, but something about the idea persists, drawing us to this white abyss, its stillness, the chilling possibility that something once lived, ruled, and knew secrets we've forgotten. Let's keep exploring. The pre-flood world is vast, its echoes far from silent. The Emerald Builders, harmony in the Amazon. From Antarctica's glacial silence, our journey leads to warmer, lush, and veiled lands, the Amazon. Here, where jungle vines entwine stones that whisper of a buried past, where the emerald canopy forms forgotten cathedral vaults. A civilization's memory pulses beneath moss and root. They are known as the Emerald Builders. We start in the Amazon basin, once dismissed as too dense and wild for complex civilization. But the forest has spoken. In the past 2 decades, LIDAR has pierced the Emerald Veil, revealing astonishing networks of geometric earthworks, mounds, causeways, and city grids spanning hundreds of kilometers, hidden for millennia. Some date back thousands of years, earlier than previously thought possible in the region. What society left these marks? How did they shape such a world, and why did it vanish? Archaeologists now believe the Amazon hosted millions, a civilization or network capable of sophisticated land management, astronomy, and architecture. Their cities were earth and plant, their temples living things, their technology unlike ours. Some point to terra preta, dark earth, bioengineered soil rich in nutrients, spread across thousands of square miles, retaining fertility for centuries, its composition still not fully understood. Was this the Emerald Builder's gift, a sustainable paradise crafted from hostile ground? Mainstream scholars are rewriting Amazonian history, but many questions remain. Who organized these vast systems? How did they communicate? And where did they go? Local indigenous traditions offer clues. Yanomami, Ashaninka, and Tucano myths tell of ancient cities of light and color ruled by wise, strange-looking beings, remembered as teachers, architects, watchers. Some tales speak of a great exodus into the forest heart or earth itself when a great flood or fire came. Echoes extend beyond South America. Mesoamerican Quetzalcoatl, African Dogon Nomo, Southeast Asian temples swallowed by jungle, all suggesting vibrant life consumed by earth, later resurfacing in silence. Are these independent expressions or fragments of a shared, ancient, almost erased memory? Fringe researchers link the Emerald Builders to a legendary civilization predating flood myths. Some connect them to Lemuria, a sunken continent in the Indian or Pacific Ocean. Others suggest they weren't confined to one place, but were a seafaring people using rivers and oceans as roads, leaving knowledge seeds globally. Most intriguing is the link to the Emerald Tablets, texts attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, speaking of lost wisdom before history, a hidden land of emerald light, builders harnessing nature's energy through resonance and balance. Could these be poetic echoes of a real people, a society aligned with Earth's cycles, whose ruins are now entangled in roots, knowledge encoded in soil and stone too subtle for modern eyes? Skeptics urge caution. Evidence is circumstantial, jungle quickly erases, oral traditions change. Yet the scale of discoveries forces reevaluation. Why assume this vast green world lacked history? Could the Emerald Builders have understood something we've forgotten? That civilization needn't scar Earth, that deepest wisdom is harmony? If their knowledge survived, where is it? Perhaps it sleeps in the jungle, waiting, speaking in trees, soil fertility, ancient causeways. The forest guards its secrets, but the Emerald Builders may have more to reveal. Let's continue. Shadows of the pre-flood world still stretch. The journey is far from over. Agartha, the civilization that vanished beneath the surface. Leaving the Amazon's emerald canopy, we descend into the earth itself. A vast, layered, largely unknown world we walk over daily. Caves, huge caverns, untouched chambers where strange ecosystems thrive in silence. Could a different civilization have thrived below the surface long before the flood? The idea is ancient. Nearly every culture whispers of beings dwelling within the earth. Greeks spoke of Hades, Hopi of ancestors emerging from underground after destruction. Hindu cosmology describes luminous Patala realms. Tibetans speak of Shambhala deep within the earth. Early Christian mystics hinted at hidden domains. These are easily dismissed as myth, but what happens when ancient tales meet modern anomalies? Vast subterranean structures worldwide lack clear explanation. Derinkuyu in Turkey, a multi-level underground city for 20,000, carved into rock, found accidentally in 1963, its builders unknown. European Erdstall tunnels, narrow twisting passages beneath fields, purpose unknown, too small for practical use, too precise to be random. Ecuadorian, Peruvian cave systems like Cueva de los Tallos, revealing artificial formations, metallic artifacts. Rumors of stone libraries. Are these refugees, escape routes, or remnants of something older, stranger? Fringe researchers suggest these are surface remnants, doorways to a deeper infrastructure predating our history, pointing to the Agartha network, vast underground cities spanning continents. This theory proposes Earth housed a civilization that moved underground to escape a catastrophe, possibly the flood around 10,800 BC. Could myths be fragments of memory of ancestors living beneath the Earth? The concept of a hollow Earth occupies a strange space between science and speculation. While geology confirms Earth's layered molten core, vast empty spaces beneath the crust aren't impossible. Seismologists detect massive voids, low-density zones, deep anomalies where sound waves behave unpredictably, where known physics meets unknowns. A 2014 discovery revealed a massive water reservoir locked in mineral form deep below, its volume capable of filling the Atlantic thrice. Could ancient civilizations have known and reached these inner realms? Traditions speak of entrances. Mount Shasta, Himalayas, Amazon, Antarctica, beneath Egyptian pyramids, guarded, hidden, leading to luminous worlds beneath stone, inhabited by knowledgeable, silent beings who survived the flood by living below. Skeptics remain grounded, arguing tunnels were practical. Myths reflect psychological archetypes, yet the ground reveals secrets. 2018 research in Canada's Nahanni Valley reported electromagnetic anomalies and defying temperatures. China's new cave systems revealed chambers large enough for clouds. South American shamans speak of ageless beings living below, watching us. If a deep Earth civilization existed, what happened? Collapse? Evolution deeper? Or does it remain hidden, watching? If it's still there, is its silence chosen? Earth holds more than stone and fire. It holds time, memory, and possibly the remains of a civilization that descended. Let's keep going. We're not done with what lies beneath. The vortex culture, dancing with Earth's energies. From Agartha's depths, where memory may have retreated, we ascend to places where the veil between visible and invisible thins. Across the globe, in deserts, mountains, plateaus, are sites where air feels heavy, compasses erratically spin, reality behaves differently. Energy centers, sacred sites, known to those tracing pre-flood civilizations as remnants of the vortex culture, defined not by territory or stone, but by relationship with Earth's forces. We begin in Sedona, Arizona's red rocks, where junipers twist strangely, hikers feel peace or disorientation. Scientists link this to magnetic anomalies in minerals, but indigenous tribes deem it sacred. Yavapai Apache speak of spirit wind corridors connecting earth and sky. Elders recall ancient ones navigating these, harnessing energy, shaping time. Similar patterns appear globally. Stonehenge in England, with fluctuating geomagnetic fields. Altai Mountains in Siberia, shamans describing natural doors opening during solstices to other realms. Peru's Sacred Valley, Inca temples align not just celestially, but with invisible earth energy points called Seike. What links these sites? Why are many built atop intersecting ley lines, hypothetical global energy channels? Why do pre-flood myths, from Mesopotamia to the Pacific, speak of a people who mastered Earth's currents? The vortex culture, some researchers propose, may not have left grand cities or records, but its legacy, if it exists, is encoded in Earth's subtle architecture, stone arrangements, chambers, land patterns. Consider Nabta Playa in Egypt, older than Stonehenge, where stones mark solstices and celestial alignments. Beneath the sand, circular mounds and underground structures suggest ritual, hinting at awareness of planetary and energetic flow. The Bighorn Medicine Wheel in Wyoming, a vast stone circle on a high peak, aligned with stars, possibly mapped along energetic principles. Native American tradition sees it as more than a calendar, but a place of communion and resonance. Were these religious or practical uses of a forgotten science? Fringe theorists suggest the vortex culture understood Earth emits subtle vibrational energies through faults, crystals, water, which can be concentrated, directed, tuned. Megalithic structures weren't monuments but instruments harmonizing with Earth's frequency, creating heightened perception, healing, consciousness zones. Coincidence? Ancient cultures described gods emerging from whirlwinds, spirals, spinning disks. The spiral is a sacred symbol globally. Skeptics are unconvinced, attributing anomalies to geology, sensations to psychology, the vortex culture idea to modern projection. Yet the pattern persists. Australia's Aboriginal Dreamtime stories speak of songlines, invisible paths encoding geography, direction, memory into song, correlating with natural features and resources, suggesting deep knowledge of land's energy. Tibetan monks practice lungam, moving with supernatural speed, not by will but by flow, harmonizing with subsurface currents. Could the vortex culture be a network of such traditions, carried by initiates seeing the world as fluid? If so, what happened? Some believe the flood was a disturbance in Earth's energy field, perhaps from a cosmic event, pole shift, or balance disruption. The vortex culture didn't die out but withdrew, knowledge encoded in myth, symbol, temples, waiting for an age that might hear the hum beneath the stone. No proof, only coincidence, pattern, resonance. But where wind moves strangely, stones align with stars, the question lingers. What did ancients know that we've forgotten? Did they listen to Earth in a way we don't? Let's continue. The past isn't only what we touch, but what we feel. The Shining Ones. Luminous beings from the edge of memory. Following the subtle trails of the vortex culture, those who may have danced with Earth's energies, another presence emerges from antiquity's shadows. Radiant, otherworldly, luminous, the Shining Ones. Remembered in whispers etched into earliest myths, preserved in distant echoes across cultures. In Mesopotamia's Göbekli Tepe, pillars carved with stylized animals and abstract figures, some showing humanoid forms, tall, broad-shouldered, sometimes headless or crowned with radiance. Who or what did these builders revere? Across the ancient Near East, Sumerian texts speak of the Anunnaki, those who from heaven came, not abstract gods but teachers, judges, descending in shining garments. In Egypt, the Nataru, divine beings with radiant headdresses, bringing agriculture, writing, cosmic order. Pre-Incan lore tells of Viracochus arriving after a flood, tall, pale-skinned, glowing-eyed, bringing civilization. Why does the motif of luminous, powerful beings reappear so often, especially post-cataclysm? The term Shining Ones isn't modern. Ancient Hebrew Elohim is translated those who shine. Zoroastrian tradition speaks of Ahuras, divine light and fire beings. Enoch's book describes angels as radiant, overwhelming. Celtic lore tells of Tuatha De Danann descending in glowing ships, skin bright with light, wielding unknown powers. Myth, metaphor, imagination, or something more? Witnesses to a lost epoch, survivors, architects of the pre-flood world? Mainstream historians classify these as myth, symbols for natural forces or noble lineages, but anomalies resist easy reconciliation. Tiwanaku in Peru, Gate of the Sun, solar motifs, Cyclopean stones, Aymara legends of light gods disappearing during a global deluge. Indian Mahabharata and Rigveda describing devas in airborne chariots, wielding blinding weapons, battles causing earthquakes, burning skies, vanished cities. Dogon people of Mali, inexplicable accurate knowledge of Sirius B, claiming wisdom from beings descending from the sky in burning arcs. How could unrelated cultures invent similar stories of luminous sky beings guiding humanity then vanishing? Fringe theorists propose the Shining Ones were remnants of advanced pre-flood civilization, human, post-human, or other. Not supernatural, but deeply knowledgeable, technologically advanced, appearing divine. Luminosity perhaps symbolic of insight or energy unknown to us. Esoteric interpretations suggest interdimensional entities, able to shift realities, their appearances, disappearances, hinting at deeper understanding of space, time, consciousness. Skepticism is warranted. Oral traditions evolve. Metaphor is powerful. Brightness is easy symbol for wisdom, power. But consistency is striking. Why always appear at memory's edge, before flood, history, bearing civilization's gifts, then vanishing? Why often described as teachers, guardians, watchers, not feared gods? Why are their temples hard to find? Some believe Shining Ones never ruled from grand cities but moved among people in liminal places, working in symbol, vibration, language, law, time architecture. Their legacy is ideas mistaken as ours, Civilization not invented but inherited? If real, what happened? Perished in cataclysm? Retreated into earth, sky, something else? Still here, hidden, glow-dimmed? We don't know, but presence lingers in star-lined temples, older than writing myths, uncanny silence at sacred sites. Pre-flood, world not done revealing its keepers. The Appalachian legacy, relics of an Atlantean colony. From the radiant myths of the Shining Ones, potential shapers of civilization sparks, we turn westward to a different horizon, far from Mesopotamia or Egypt. A land of fog, ancient forests, forgotten hills, the eastern United States. Here in the dense, mist-veiled Appalachians, an older whisper takes root. Not of a native beginning, but an inheritance. A colony established long before recorded history, a relic of Atlantis hidden in the highlands. Stretching from Alabama to New York, the Appalachians are among Earth's oldest ranges, bearing witness to epochs of change. Their deep, diverse forests conceal caves, stone circles, ridges not entirely natural. Local legends, Cherokee and early colonial, hint at strange truths. Stories of moon-eyed people, pale, small-statured, unable to see daylight, vanishing suddenly, leaving mounds and stone walls. Cherokee believed they were already there, arriving from the east over the Great Water. Across the region, mysterious stone ruins remain unexplained. Fort Mountain Wall in Georgia, over 850 ft along a ridge. Stacked stones, no mortar, no clear defensive purpose. Similar stoneworks in Alabama, Tennessee, West Virginia. Mainstream archaeologists attribute them to Native Americans or settlers, but many predate known tribal occupations, lack cultural markers. Who built them and why? Some suggest they're remnants of an older presence, tied to Atlantis. Plato's account describes a vast seafaring empire existing over 9,000 years before Solon, destroyed around 11600 BC, sending colonies to distant shores. Most focus on Mediterranean and Caribbean, but what if one pushed farther, reaching North America's eastern shores, establishing a foothold in Appalachia? Mainstream historians find this unlikely, but fragments stir curiosity. Copper tools, artifacts in prehistoric European sites from Great Lakes copper puzzle archaeologists. How did old world civilizations get material only from North America? Transatlantic contact thousands of years before Columbus? Early European explorers in 16th and 17th centuries encountered Appalachian tribes with unexpected features. Gray-blue eyes, lighter skin, complex oral traditions of sea-arriving ancestors. While romanticized, distorted, some early accounts describe white tribes in southeastern woodlands with stone-built villages, practices unlike neighbors. Fringe theorists propose these people, later blending with or displaced by indigenous groups, were distant Atlantean settler descendants, isolated over millennia, clinging to heritage fragments until time wilderness eroded all but faint traces. Then the mounds. Throughout Ohio-Mississippi valleys, parts of Appalachia, massive earthworks, animals, spirals, astronomical alignments. Serpent Mound in Ohio, precise, otherworldly, attributed to Adena, Hopewell cultures, true origins disputed. Some scholars argue base layers older than cultures building upon them. Could mounds, walls, myths be echoes of an Atlantean offshoot, settling far from origin, adapting, leaving only shadow and stone? Skeptics urge restraint. Oral histories fluid, stone ruins misinterpreted, no definitive evidence. Yet mystery persists. Why are oldest Appalachian structures hard to date? Why do cultures describe people who came before, then vanished? Why assume great civilizations only in the Old World? In Smoky's hushed groves, Blue Ridge's shadowy ridges, silence feels heavy, as if Earth remembers something we don't, as if beneath soil, time stones watch. Perhaps Appalachians hold memory not just of rivers' shifts, but something built, lost, waiting. Let's continue. Past reaches further than imagined, through flood, forest, myth. The Rama Empire, cycles of time in ancient India. From Appalachia's mist-veiled mountains, whispers of Atlantean colonies, we head eastward to India, where myth and memory are indistinguishable. Rivers coil like serpents, Stones hum a forgotten language. Northern India, before the Vedas, before remembered time, something else may have existed. The Rama Empire, advanced, vast, possibly global. The name from epics like the Ramayana, depicting Rama as prince, warrior, divine being. But was he memory of a forgotten age, symbol of a people erased by time, flood? Throughout India, ruins emerge unexpectedly. Megalithic stone temples in South India, foundations older than inscriptions. City remnants like submerged Dwarka, baffling depth, Shaka precision. Artifacts from Sarasvati riverbeds, a river now gone but feeding an ecosystem of lost cities. Mainstream scholars speak of Indus Valley civilization, Bronze Age marvel, advanced urban planning, sanitation, trade. But radar reveals deeper structures, older, unaligned, heavier stone, oriented to stars, not rivers. Who lived before Harappans? Language? Why no record except legend? Ramayana, Mahabharata, written down centuries later, describe technology, warfare of staggering scale. Vimanas, flying machines, firelight weapons, sky cities, terrible wars scarring Earth. Descriptions poetic but specific. Propulsion, aerial battles, after effects of what some interpret as nuclear events. Mohenjo-daro, mysterious layer of fused green glass, vitrified soil, rare in nature, found also at nuclear test sites. Coincidence? Volcanic pressure? Or evidence of disturbing things? Mahabharata describes weapon like blazing smoke, fire column, blinding warriors, birds falling. Hyperbole? Or disturbing resemblance to atomic detonation? Written, preserved thousands of years before such weapons conceived. Rama Empire mastering energies we don't understand? Or myth misunderstood? If myth, why similar stories globally? Mesopotamian texts, Mesoamerican codices, Norse epics, shining cities, devastating god wars, weapons too powerful for man? Fragments of same memory? Rama Empire, a piece of global puzzle? Civilization before 10,000 BC, before Ice Age, before flood as reset? Question of Nagas, serpent beings, underground river dwelling, associated with ancient Indian kings, ruling before, alongside humans, architects, engineers of great cities in time before time. Metaphor, another species, memory, Vijayanagara, built later atop older ruins. Architects spoke of building on Rama's empire bones. Bones never conclusively dated. Architecture out of place, massive stone beams, interlocking foundations, mathematical proportions in Angkor Wat, Teotihuacan. Knowledge transcending continents, keepers of this geometry. Indian government restricts access to sites, especially submerged Gulf of Cambay. Sonar reveals stone structure grids lost beneath sea. Skeptics cite natural formations, but sonar shows rectilinear designs, roads, stepped wells, ziggurats. Interpretations date these cities over 9,000 years. If confirmed, rewrite history. Confirmation elusive. Truth of Rama Empire not in stone but rhythm. Mantras echoing codes, stories disguising records, rituals encoding science. Ancients hid knowledge from time by making it sacred, protected by reverence. Rama Empire, one of Earth's first civilization experiments, beacon of art, energy, order, before history remembered, or mirror showing desires, silence of deep temples, hum of rituals, memory of Rama persists. What remains of world before Vedas? Why vanished? The Naacal Brotherhood, keepers of Mu's secrets. As Rama Empire echoes fade through India's soil, ruins, scriptures, we turn to older, more elusive whispers. The Pacific, chain of legends, symbols on volcanic cliffs, name drifting like shadow. The Naacal Brotherhood. Temple location unknown, language unknown, yet traces remain. Esoteric texts, fringe records, claim Naacal were keepers of knowledge too vast, priests, sonar scientists of ancient Mu, a continent potentially stretching across Pacific, connecting Asia Americas through civilization of terrifying intelligence, spiritual power. Name not just folklore, concept of Mu in Western consciousness via Le Plongeon and James Churchward, claiming translation of ancient tablets describing vanished priesthood, Naacals, guardians of sacred, builders of ocean-lost cities, cataclysm survivors. Skeptics dismiss claims, no geological evidence for Mu. Yet oral histories, Polynesia to South America, speak of a motherland sinking. Hopi speak of Kaskara, Hawaiians of Kani Hunamoku, Maori of Hawaii. Versions include wise, luminous people possessing knowledge of stars, energy, consciousness. Were these the Naacals? Researchers point to Nan Madol, enigmatic stone city off Pompeii, as surviving outpost. Built on reefs with massive basalt columns, transported from afar without cranes, wheels, iron. Over 250 million tons placed with near-perfect symmetry. Ceremony site for Naacal, fragment of vaster structure claimed by sea. Marquesas Islands, petroglyphs echoing symbols in Indus Valley tablets, and Peruvian pre-Columbian ruins. Shared motifs suggesting transatlantic transmission, or pointing to unified lost civilization matrix. Memory surviving in sacred geometry, encoded myth. Churchward claimed Naacal Brotherhood was spiritual caste preserving advanced knowledge, teachings in ideographs, geometry, light-based encoding, symbols referencing cosmic cycles, planetary alignments, energy grids, ley lines. Mere metaphor? Or Naacals interacting with Earth's magnetic fields using unknown natural forces? What of the catastrophe? Every Mu story ends in water, sudden cataclysm. Earthquake fracturing seafloor, sky of fire raining down, dark tide swallowing cities. Myth or memory? Lost Pacific civilization predating last ice age, unacceptable hypothesis for most scholars. Yet underwater discoveries like Yonaguni Monument off Japan challenge idea of advanced stone construction only in Neolithic. Yonaguni, carved steps, platforms, symmetrical walls submerged. Natural or ruin too old to date? If ruin, who built? Some propose Naacal not civilization, but network, initiatic order, traveling from Mu to other lands before flood. Spiritual diaspora, teachings basis of Egyptian mystery schools, Mayan cosmology, Tibetan bone. Not conquest but transmission. Echoes of Naacal Brotherhood in temples worldwide, serpent mounds of Ohio, megalithic observatories of Bolivia, star-aligned shrines of Easter Island, outposts, messages, markers for future they knew would forget. Why secrecy? Fringe interpretations. Naacals believe sacred knowledge misused destroys worlds. Encoded wisdom in myth, architecture, sound, vibration. Not hiding from unworthy, but preserving until humanity ready. If so, price of silence? Flood myths, following globally, suggest world not ready, something wrong, line crossed, knowledge brotherhood buried. Left with fragments, symbols without keys, temples without builders, name persisting in memory's margins. Naacal, whisper from deep Pacific. Was Brotherhood of Light real? Walked Earth before history? Left behind what we haven't found? The kingdoms of giants, colossal beings of Eurasia. As Naacal whispers drift, we turn to land. Vast, silent steppes of Eurasia. Stone echoes sky. Bones speak when Earth disturbed. Urals to Central Asia, shadow lingers in soil. Forgotten burial mounds. Ancient tribe myths. Shadow of giants. Not metaphorical, but physical. Towering, real. Dozens of cultures across Eurasia, Slavic, Scythian, Iranian, Turkic, Mongolic. Stories of ancient beings not like us. Immense stature, strength, wisdom, ruling before flood, before man's memory could hold them. Urka, Almaz, Old Russian Chronicles, Vityazi. Colossal. Truly existed? Archaeological records silent, yet curious anomalies. Unusually large bones and old mounds quietly removed. Enormous weapons, sheath tools too big for ordinary humans. Megalithic doorways in mountains, carved precisely for figures 9-12 feet tall. Caucasus shepherds whisper of Katsky giants moving among crags, leaving fossilized footprints. Siberia, Yenisei River, petroglyphs, elongated humanoids, arms outstretched to sky, several times taller than smaller figures beside them. Myth, symbolism, memory. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss stories as cultural metaphors, but researchers take a slower approach, pointing to astonishing consistency of giant legends across vast regions. Bashkir folklore. Giants built underground cities to escape skyfire. Altai, ancient beings shaping stone with sound, vanishing after Second Ice Age. Then megaliths, scattered across Eurasian heartland. Vast stone structures, tombs, observatories, unknown purpose. Kazakhstan's Turgai region. Massive stone rings, geometric patterns visible from sky, stretching across desert. Who built? Why designed for aerial view before flight? Remnants of giants' kingdoms? Shoria Mountains, southern Siberia. Granite megalith wall stacked with machine-like precision, some weighing 3,000 tons. No inscriptions, artifacts, typical human activity. Silent stone, abandoned or built for forgotten purposes. Mainstream, natural formations, erosion, tectonic pressure. But why symmetrical patterns? Flat faces, right angles defying nature. Russian Far East, legends of old stone kings teaching early humans farming, marking stars. Pale skin, silver eyes, walking earth before mountains rose. Distorted echoes of pre-flood civilization, built by beings of greater scale, understanding. Even Western Eurasia hints. Anatolia, myth of Ulubucha, great elders. Earth trembling beneath rulers' footsteps. Ancient Sumer, Babylon, earliest gods depicted as divine, gigantic. Anunnaki described as descending, standing apart physically. Possible these tales not isolated cultural flourishes, but fractured memories of epoch predating ours. Kingdoms spanning Russia, snowfields to Turkmenistan deserts, ruled by beings taller, stronger, more intelligent than we imagine? If so, what happened? Flood? Earth shift? Decision to disappear? Mountains? Earth? Myth? Most haunting. What if they didn't all leave? Whispers in Pamir Mountains? Travelers vanish after reporting strange watching figures. Urals forests, giants not dead, merely sleep. Beneath unopened kurgans, what bones lie undisturbed? No certainty, only patterns. Carved stone to whispered tale, unearthed relic to vanished lineages. Wind across Eurasian plains, stirring grass over forgotten mounds, leaves ancient question. Were there truly giant kingdoms here? Why remembered only in fragments? The Nazca lines in the mirror to a forgotten sky, a cosmic blueprint, celestial communication, the audience above, and the unsettling scale of creation. Our journey into the terrifying tapestry of pre-flood worlds brings us to the stark, windswept desert plateau of Nazca in southern Peru, a landscape that holds one of Earth's most enduring and visually arresting mysteries. The Nazca lines, etched across hundreds of square kilometers of arid, reddish-brown rock, these geoglyphs constitute a colossal outdoor gallery depicting a fascinating array of stylized animals. A colibri, hummingbird, with impossibly elongated wings, a spider whose form eerily mirrors a celestial constellation, Orion according to some interpretations, a monkey with a spiraling tail, a majestic condor, and various other creatures, alongside geometric shapes of immense scale, perfect trapezoids, triangles, rectangles, and lines that stretch ruler-straight for miles across the gently undulating terrain, seemingly ignoring natural obstacles like hills and valleys. While conventionally attributed to the Nazca culture that flourished in the region from roughly 500 BCE to 500 CE, the sheer scale, precision, and, most significantly, the fact that these designs are best, and in many cases only, fully appreciable from a significant altitude have led to persistent and often unsettling questions about the Nazca people's true purpose, the source of their knowledge, and their potential connection to something far older and more profound. A pre-flood world whose echoes resonate in these monumental ground etchings. The primary enigma of the Nazca lines lies in this question of scale and perspective. Why would a ground-dwelling culture invest such enormous effort in seemingly sophisticated engineering, achieved by removing the upper layer of darker rock to expose the lighter subsurface, in creating something that they themselves could not truly see or appreciate from their own vantage point? Who or what was the intended audience for these massive designs? This fundamental question has fueled countless theories and debates. Mainstream archaeological explanations, while offering valuable insights into the Nazca culture's cosmology, religious practices, and engineering capabilities, often feel insufficient to fully encompass the sheer scale and perplexing nature of the phenomenon. Theories propose that the lines and figures served as a vast astronomical calendar, an observatory marking the movements of celestial bodies critical for agriculture and religious rituals. Others suggest they were ritual pathways used in elaborate religious processions, with pilgrims perhaps walking the outlines of the figures. Still others hypothesize they were markers indicating underground water sources or related to complex irrigation systems in this parched environment. While these explanations undoubtedly hold some truth for certain figures and lines, they often fail to account for the vast majority of the geoglyphs, particularly the seemingly random straight lines that traverse the landscape without any obvious correlation to known astronomical events, water sources, or processional routes of the Nazca period. The truly unsettling aspect lies in the potential for a deeper, pre-Nazca layer of meaning and creation. Some researchers utilizing satellite imagery and astronomical software point to potential alignments within the lines and figures that seem to correspond to constellations or celestial events that were prominent in the sky thousands of years before the Nazca culture is believed to have existed, potentially placing their origin closer to the hypothesized time frame of a global flood or the end of the last ice age. Could the Nazca people have inherited, discovered, or meticulously copied these designs from an older, more sophisticated culture that possessed a far deeper understanding of the cosmos and its relationship to Earth? Were they meticulously reproducing a cosmic blueprint laid down by a forgotten civilization, perhaps without fully understanding its original purpose or significance? The sheer precision, the ability to maintain perfect straightness over miles of uneven terrain, and the geometric accuracy suggest a level of planning and execution that goes beyond simple artistic or ritualistic expression and hints at advanced surveying techniques and a profound understanding of geometry. Fringe theories, venturing into more speculative and potentially terrifying territory, propose that the Nazca lines were not merely symbolic or ritualistic drawings, but a functional part of a larger system designed for direct interaction with non-terrestrial entities, the cosmic pilgrims or shining ones, whose presence is a recurring theme in other ancient myths. The vast, perfectly straight lines have been interpreted by some as runways, landing strips, or guidance markers for spacecraft designed to be visible from a great altitude. The figures could have served as identifying symbols for specific landing zones, messages of welcome, or even a form of communication with those who came from the sky. The underlying idea is that a pre-flood civilization, one that had potentially established contact with or was influenced by non-terrestrial beings, created this monumental groundwork as a form of interaction or communication with their celestial counterparts. The later Nazca people, from this perspective, might have been inheritors of this ancient site, perhaps misunderstanding its original purpose, but continuing to maintain or even add to the designs as part of a complex religious or ritualistic practice, based on the fragmented memory of those who came from the sky. The presence of the Viracochas in Andean lore, described as tall, fair-skinned beings who arrived after a great flood and are credited with bringing the foundations of civilization to the region, adds a compelling layer of indigenous support for the idea of external, perhaps even non-terrestrial, intervention in the region's deep past. Could the Nazca lines be a tangible, albeit cryptic legacy of the Viracochas, a colossal mirror reflecting the forgotten cosmic knowledge they possessed, or a map of their connection to the heavens? Or more chillingly, were they a continuous message intended for those who once descended in their luminous vessels? A form of invitation, a territorial claim, a form of energetic signaling, or perhaps even a warning? The Nazca Desert, despite its profound stillness, resonates with unspoken questions, its monumental patterns a terrifying reminder that the intended audience for some of humanity's most ancient and inexplicable creations may not have been confined to the Earth's surface, hinting at a profound, unsettling, and potentially ongoing connection between the Earth and the sky in a world that was fundamentally transformed and erased by the Great Flood. The most terrifying thought lingers. Were these lines a form of communication with something that is still out there, observing and perhaps even remembering? Submerged cities, the drowned footprints of a global deluge, the ocean's secrets, the terrifying scale of loss, and the unreachable past. From the celestial mystery etched in the desert floor of Nazca, we plunge into the vast, silent, and potentially terrifying realm of the ocean, the primary force of destruction and concealment in countless pre-flood narratives. The widespread presence of a global flood myth in ancient cultures across the globe is not merely a curious literary or symbolic phenomenon. It has increasingly fueled speculation among researchers about a real, cataclysmic event or a series of events that dramatically reshaped the Earth's surface and, crucially, led to the widespread destruction and submersion of advanced coastal and low-lying civilizations. What truly lies hidden beneath the waves, entombed by millennia of sediment, coral growth, and the immense pressure of the deep ocean? The idea of submerged cities is not confined to the legendary Atlantis. Tangible, albeit fiercely debated and often controversial, underwater structures continue to emerge, offering tantalizing and sometimes terrifying potential glimpses into a drowned past. The Bimini Road off the Bahamas, a linear formation of flat rectangular stones arranged in a discernible pattern on the seabed, is a classic example of a debated underwater oopart, out-of-place artifact. While proponents argue for its artificial origin, citing the regularity of the stones, their size, and their organized placement as evidence of human or intelligent design, critics staunchly maintain that it is a natural geological formation shaped by erosion and currents over time. The Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan presents an even more compelling case for some researchers. This massive submerged structure, located off the coast of Yonaguni Island, exhibits flat terraces, sharp right angles, seemingly carved steps, and what appears to be a large, triangular platform. Its sheer scale, geometric precision, and apparent architectural features lead many to believe it is a man-made structure, potentially dating back thousands of years, while mainstream geologists attribute its features to natural erosional processes acting on a unique geological formation. Crucially, our understanding of past global sea levels provides a strong geological basis for the potential existence of extensive submerged settlements. During the last glacial maximum, which peaked around 20,000 years ago, immense volumes of water were locked up in vast continental ice sheets, resulting in global sea levels over 400 feet lower than they are today. This exposed vast areas of continental shelves around the world, creating extensive coastlines and potentially fertile land masses that are now covered by water. As the climate warmed and the glaciers melted over the subsequent millennia, global sea levels rose dramatically. This process occurred over thousands of years, but may have included periods of rapid inundation, potentially triggered by events like the catastrophic collapse of glacial ice dams, volcanic activity, or even asteroid impacts. These rapidly rising waters would have overwhelmed coastal settlements, infrastructure, and entire land masses, submerging them in relatively short periods. The discovery of the submerged city of Dwarka off the coast of Gujarat, India, in the Gulf of Cambay in 2001 is particularly significant and has sparked considerable debate. Sonar surveys and subsequent underwater explorations have revealed the remains of what appears to be a large, well-planned city at a depth of around 120 feet, featuring rectilinear structures, paved streets, walls, and evidence of a harbor. While the precise dating of Dwarka remains a subject of intense academic debate, with some estimates placing it as far back as 9,000 years ago, well within the time frame following the hypothesized global flood event, its very existence at that depth and its apparent urban planning features challenge the conventional timeline for the development of major urban centers in India and elsewhere. What if Dwarka is not a unique anomaly, but just one example of many advanced coastal cities that were lost to the rising seas following a period of rapid glacial melt or other catastrophic events? Reports of similar structures, some at even greater depths, have surfaced off the coasts of Cuba, in the Mediterranean, and other regions, often remaining unconfirmed, attributed to natural causes, or shrouded in limited access for independent investigation. The flood in this context was not just a destructive force, it was a monumental and terrifying act of concealment. The rapidly rising waters became a profound and incredibly effective veil, bearing the evidence of a vast and potentially sophisticated past era under miles of oceanic expanse. The terrifying scale of this potential loss is almost unfathomable. Entire civilizations, with their cities, technologies, knowledge, and cultural heritage, could lie entombed beneath the waves, forever beyond our immediate reach and understanding. The increasing sophistication of underwater exploration technologies, high-resolution sonar, remote-controlled submersibles, ROVs, autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, and advanced mapping techniques, is opening up new possibilities for exploring these submerged landscapes, revealing anomalies on the seabed that demand careful investigation and unbiased interpretation. However, the sheer vastness and depth of the world's oceans mean that much of this potential history remains hidden, perhaps permanently inaccessible due to cost, logistical challenges, or the deliberate suppression of information. The silence of the depths holds a terrifying potential that a significant, perhaps even defining, portion of our shared human story lies permanently inaccessible, a drowned testament to a lost age whose secrets are guarded by the crushing pressure and eternal darkness of the deep sea. The true scale of what the ocean holds, the civilizations it has swallowed, may dwarf our current understanding of history, a constant, silent, and terrifying reminder of a world that was not just lost, but actively submerged and forgotten. Artifacts that shouldn't exist, the lingering traces of pre-flood technology, the challenge to our technological narrative, and the whisper of forgotten science. Moving beyond the grand, often debatable, scale of ruined cities and submerged structures, the pre-flood world seems to have left behind more numerous, though often individually less conclusive clues, artifacts that, based on our current understanding of history and technological development, are found in places and times where they simply shouldn't be. These are the out-of-place artifacts, UPARTs, objects that defiantly challenge established archaeological chronologies and often hint at knowledge, skills, or capabilities far exceeding the accepted norms for their presumed creators or time periods. Their very existence forces us to question our comfortable, linear view of technological progress and opens the door to terrifying possibilities about a lost era of advanced knowledge that was either intentionally suppressed or violently erased. Consider the enigmatic gold artifacts found in pre-Columbian sites in Colombia, often dubbed ancient airplanes or Quimbaya airplanes. While mainstream archaeologists classify them as zoomorphic pendants or stylized representations of insects or fish, their remarkable aerodynamic shape, featuring delta wings, a fuselage, vertical stabilizers, and even what resembles a rudder, has captivated engineers and alternative researchers. Some argue that these features demonstrate an understanding of aerodynamic principles that should have been unknown to cultures of that era, prompting speculation about their function. Were they models of flying machines, sophisticated toys, or something else entirely? Nor the source of their design inspiration. The Sabu disc, discovered in the tomb of a First Dynasty Egyptian nobleman named Sabu, dating to around 3100–3000 BCE, is another particularly compelling example. This thin, perfectly circular disc of schist features 3 curved lobes emanating from a central hub. Its fragile, complex shape and the remarkable precision required to create it from brittle schist without clear evidence of advanced metal tools have puzzled Egyptologists for decades. While some suggest it was a ceremonial object, its form is highly suggestive of a functional mechanical component, potentially part of a rotating mechanism, a pump, or even a form of ancient turbine, indicating a level of mechanical understanding and manufacturing capability not typically associated with this early period of Egyptian history. The Baghdad Battery, found near Baghdad in the 1930s and generally dated to the Parthian era, roughly 250 BCE to 250 CE, consists of a clay jar containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod, sealed with asphalt. Numerous modern reproductions have demonstrated that this simple assembly can generate a small electric current when filled with an electrolyte like grape juice or vinegar. While its exact function in antiquity is debated, proposed uses range from electroplating small objects with gold or other metals to medicinal purposes, or even for creating religious illusions. The concept of generating and utilizing electricity at this early date is highly unusual and challenges the conventional timeline for the development of electrical knowledge. Other intriguing parts include the Antikythera mechanism, though often dated slightly later than the hypothesized pre-flood period, its incredible complexity as an analog computer for predicting astronomical positions hints at a lineage of lost ancient technology. Various examples of fine metallurgy or intricate carvings found in contexts where the purported creators were not believed to have possessed the necessary skills or tools, and objects made from materials not believed to have been worked or even accessible by the cultures they are attributed to. The sheer number, diversity, and persistent mystery surrounding these puzzling artifacts, spanning different geographical locations and widely separated time periods, make it increasingly difficult to dismiss them all as isolated anomalies, misinterpretations, or outright forgeries. Mainstream science generally offers explanations rooted in known technologies and cultural practices of the time, often interpreting these artifacts as misunderstood religious objects, purely decorative elements, or the improbable result of fortunate accidents, independent invention, or convergent innovation. However, the consistent pattern of finding objects that appear to demonstrate knowledge or capabilities seemingly out of sync with their supposed historical context remains a significant source of intrigue and a profound challenge to our comfortable, linear view of technological progress. What if these parts are not simply strange curiosities, but tiny, fragmented, and often damaged remnants of a lost technology belonging to the pre-flood civilizations? Could the Watchers, the Shining Ones, the architects of the vortex culture, or the builders of the Rama Empire have possessed a sophisticated understanding of metallurgy, electricity, aerodynamics, precision machining, optics, or even more advanced principles that were vastly superior to what developed later in recorded history? Could these artifacts be lingering pieces of transferred knowledge, deliberately left behind as clues, or simply lost in the chaos of a collapsing world, or even actual, albeit damaged or incomplete, tools, components, or models from an age preceding the flood? The very existence of such objects, even if their specific function remains debated, challenges our certainty about our own technological trajectory and suggests a potential historical leap or reset that is not fully accounted for in conventional history. They are like scattered breadcrumbs, suggesting a path of innovation and scientific understanding that was abruptly disrupted or erased by a global catastrophe, leaving behind only these rare, perplexing objects that defy our current understanding and hint at a terrifying technological sophistication that existed long before recorded history. The terrifying thought is that we may be rediscovering, piece by agonizing piece, knowledge that was once commonplace, and that the true technological peak of humanity, or at least a significant prior peak, lies not in our future, but in our forgotten and terrifying past. The whisper of forgotten science is a chilling possibility. Cosmic pilgrims, pre-flood connections to the outer realms, the seeds of civilization, the unanswered question of intent, and the terror of the other. The narrative of powerful beings descending from the sky or another realm is not merely a localized myth confined to a single culture. It is a deeply embedded, universal motif found in the foundational stories and religious texts of cultures across the globe, hinting at a terrifying shared memory of interaction with something fundamentally other. From the Anunnaki, whose very name in Sumerian can be interpreted as those who from heaven came down to earth, and the luminous, powerful devas of Indian cosmology, often depicted as arriving in aerial vehicles, vimanas, to the benevolent, civilizing Viracochas who appeared after a great flood in Andean lore and are credited with bringing order and knowledge, and the mystical Tuatha De Danann arriving in Ireland in glowing ships or a mist. The persistent theme of non-terrestrial or hyper-terrestrial entities actively interacting with early humanity is remarkably consistent and often terrifying in its implications. In the context of pre-flood civilizations, these cosmic pilgrims are frequently portrayed not as distant, abstract deities to be passively worshipped, but as tangible, sometimes even physical beings who directly intervened in human affairs. They are credited with bringing the fundamental knowledge upon which complex societies are built: agriculture, writing systems, astronomy, metallurgy, organized law, social structures, and even advanced technologies. Could the seemingly rapid emergence in sophistication of early civilizations in the post-flood world be directly attributed to, or at least heavily influenced by, direct contact and knowledge transfer from these non-human or other dimensional beings? The ancient astronaut theories, while often met with strong skepticism from mainstream science and sometimes lacking rigorous methodology, offer a literal interpretation of these widespread myths. They propose that extraterrestrial visitors in advanced spacecraft visited Earth in the distant past, particularly during a pre-flood era, and directly influenced or accelerated the development of human civilization through genetic manipulation, knowledge transfer, or even direct guidance. While definitive, irrefutable archaeological proof of such literal visits remains elusive and highly debated, the striking similarities in narratives across geographically isolated cultures about beings arriving from the sky and imparting knowledge continue to fuel this line of inquiry and demand a more comprehensive explanation than simple coincidence. Beyond literal extraterrestrial visitors in metal ships, the concept of cosmic pilgrims could also encompass beings from another dimension, a different phase of existence, or a highly evolved terrestrial species that had achieved a form of transcendence or existed in a state fundamentally different from our own. The Watchers of the Book of Enoch, described as celestial beings who descended to Mount Hermon and chose to interact directly with humanity, taking human wives and sharing forbidden knowledge, fit this broader description. Their decision to intervene is portrayed as a pivotal and ultimately destructive event, a catalyst that led to both unprecedented technological advancement and moral corruption, the birth of terrifying giants, Nephilim, and ultimately triggering the divine judgment of the flood as a form of cosmic cleansing. This narrative suggests a powerful, world-altering interaction between fundamentally different forms of intelligence and existence. Furthermore, many pre-flood ruins and ancient sites, particularly those with precise astronomical alignments, Göbekli Tepe, the Giza complex Tiwanaku, sophisticated calendars, and deep cosmological understandings, demonstrate a level of celestial and universal knowledge that seems to precede the practical needs of early agricultural societies, and hints at a source of knowledge beyond terrestrial observation alone. Could this advanced astronomical, cosmological, and potentially even metaphysical knowledge have been imparted by beings who possessed a deeper understanding of the universe, its cycles, its influence on earthly life, and perhaps even the nature of reality itself? The vortex culture, with its hypothesized understanding of Earth's subtle energies and their connection to celestial alignments, might represent a synthesis of terrestrial geomancy with profound cosmic insights imparted by these pilgrims. The Shining Ones, a particularly evocative and terrifying term, are often described with a radiant, luminous quality, suggesting a non-physical, energetic, or highly evolved state of being that would appear divine or terrifying to early humans. Perhaps they were not biological entities in the conventional human sense, but beings whose understanding of physics, energy, consciousness, and the fundamental nature of the universe was so profound that they manifested in ways that seemed miraculous or terrifying. Their interactions with humanity might have involved the exchange of not just practical knowledge, but also a deeper understanding of the nature of reality, consciousness, and the multidimensional universe. This cosmic aspect of pre-flood myths suggests that the story of human history is far more complex, less linear, and more interconnected than our current timelines suggest. What if the pre-flood world was not simply an early, isolated stage of human civilization, but was instead a pivotal period of intense interaction with other forms of intelligence or other realms? An interaction that fundamentally shaped humanity's trajectory, but was abruptly severed or dramatically altered by a global catastrophe? The lingering presence of these cosmic pilgrim narratives, often accompanied by descriptions of their immense power, their unusual appearance, and the sometimes devastating consequences of their intervention, serves as a terrifying possibility that the very foundations of our civilization may have been laid by beings who are not of this earth, and whose true nature, motivations, and ultimate fate remain shrouded in mystery. The unanswered question of their intent. Were they truly benevolent teachers seeking to elevate humanity? Manipulative overseers using humanity for their own purposes? Scientists conducting experiments? Or something far more indifferent, alien, or even hostile? Adds a layer of profound uncertainty and existential terror to the very dawn of human history. The possibility that we are the inheritors of a civilization seated by the other is a chilling prospect. Lost languages, the whispers of pre-flood communication, the unreadable scripts, the silence of erased meaning, and the quest for a universal tongue. Language is not merely a tool for daily communication. It is the very foundation of culture, the primary vehicle by which knowledge is accumulated, transmitted across generations, and built upon. Our understanding of linguistic history typically traces back to various established language families, like Indo-European or Sino-Tibetan, but these systems seem to emerge relatively late in the grand sweep of human existence, long after the hypothesized era of sophisticated pre-flood civilizations. What if there were languages, entire systems of communication, that existed before all known linguistic families? The languages spoken by the sophisticated, or perhaps simply different, inhabitants of the pre-flood world? The concept of a first language, a primordial tongue, a language of the gods, or a universal language that predated the confusion of tongues, like the Tower of Babel narrative, appears in numerous ancient traditions and esoteric texts. The idea of the lost language of Mu, the sacred tongue of the Naacal Brotherhood, or the imposing speech of the giants echoes through these accounts, suggesting a deep-seated cultural memory of communication systems fundamentally different from our own. Could these concepts be more than just symbolic representations of communication? Could they hint at actual, forgotten linguistic systems that held keys to understanding a lost world? The search for tangible evidence of these lost languages is inherently difficult and fraught with challenges, as the physical remnants of pre-flood cultures are scarce, often fragmented, and lack clear historical context. However, some out-of-place artifacts and ancient sites bear inscriptions or symbols that do not conform to any known historical writing systems, presenting a profound and frustrating challenge to decipherment. The controversial Ica stones from Peru, despite their questionable authenticity and likely modern origin, illustrate the idea of a lost script depicting scenes and technologies seemingly incompatible with their supposed age, a visual representation of the concept of a forgotten written language of a past civilization. More compelling are the enigmatic symbols found carved on certain megalithic structures, artifacts of unknown origin, or even within the architecture itself. The abstract, stylized symbols on some pillars at Göbekli Tepe, dating back to a period potentially preceding or immediately following the last ice age, do not fit neatly into any known early writing system, prompting intense speculation among researchers about their meaning, purpose, and the potential existence of a symbolic or ideographic writing system that predates known cuneiform or hieroglyphics. The Piri Reis map, a 16th century Ottoman map believed to be based on older source maps of remarkable accuracy, including depictions of coastlines and landmasses seemingly free of ice, like Antarctica, raises questions about the cartographic knowledge of a pre-flood era. If these older source maps existed and were the product of a pre-flood civilization, what language or system of notation did they use to record geographical data with such apparent precision? The intricate designs of the Nazca lines, if they served a purpose beyond simple artistry or ritual, might have been part of a complex system of communication or information storage, perhaps a form of land-based script or symbolic language readable from above, a message encoded in the landscape itself. The idea that pre-flood communication extended beyond conventional written or oral language is also a compelling and potentially terrifying possibility. The song lines of the Australian Aboriginal people, which encode vast amounts of geographical, historical, and cultural information into complex songs and oral narratives deeply tied to the landscape, suggest a form of knowledge transmission that is intrinsically linked to the environment and transcends linear textual formats. Could the language of the pre-flood civilizations have encompassed other forms of communication, symbolic, geometric, energetic, vibrational, or even telepathic? If the vortex culture truly understood Earth's energy grids, perhaps they communicated through subtle frequencies, resonant patterns within their energetic architecture, or conscious interaction with these fields, a form of nonverbal communication that we have long forgotten. The concept of the Naacal Brotherhood, as described in esoteric texts attributed to James Churchward and others, emphasizes the preservation of sacred knowledge in the form of ideographs and complex symbolic systems, perhaps a form of light-based encoding or sophisticated geometric representation that held profound meaning. If these accounts hold any truth, it suggests that pre-flood knowledge was not necessarily recorded in perishable manuscripts or phonetic alphabets, but in a more universal, enduring, and perhaps even consciousness-based language. Skeptics rightly point out the inherent difficulty of interpreting unknown symbols without a known cultural context or a Rosetta Stone equivalent, and the significant risk of misinterpreting natural patterns as deliberate design. However, the consistent appearance of unreadable scripts, enigmatic symbols, and suggestions of non-conventional communication methods at sites and in myths connected to ancient mysteries compels further investigation. If pre-flood civilizations were as sophisticated or simply as different as some theories suggest, they undoubtedly possessed complex and effective means of communication. The terrifying thought is that we may not only have lost the physical remnants of a past world, but that its very voice may be permanently silenced to us, its profound knowledge locked away in scripts and symbols we cannot comprehend, leaving us only with the frustrating whispers of lost languages and the profound silence of erased meaning. The true terror lies in the possibility that immense wisdom, understanding, and even warnings are encoded all around us, in the stones, the land, the myths, but we lack the key, the language, to understand it, leaving us potentially vulnerable to the very forces that destroyed the world that came before. The quest for a universal tongue, a language that transcends our modern limitations, becomes a terrifying search for the lost voice of a drowned civilization. Energetic architecture, temples tuned to the Earth's pulse, the harmonious city, the forgotten science of resonance, and the unseen grid of power. Delving even deeper into the compelling concept of the vortex culture, we explore the fascinating, complex, and potentially terrifying possibility that pre-flood civilizations possessed a profound, applied, and perhaps even dangerous understanding of Earth's subtle energies and consciously integrated this knowledge into the design and construction of their cities, temples, and monumental structures. Across the globe, ancient megalithic sites are frequently found situated in locations with unusual geological or geomagnetic properties. At the convergence of fault lines, over deposits of specific crystalline minerals like quartz, granite, or basalt, known for their piezoelectric properties, or at points where Earth's natural energy currents, often referred to in esoteric traditions as ley lines, are believed to intersect, creating localized areas of heightened telluric energy. Furthermore, the design and construction of these structures themselves frequently incorporate elements that alternative researchers and some geophysicists suggest were deliberately intended to amplify, focus, channel, or interact with these energies, creating a form of energetic architecture that goes far beyond mere aesthetics or structural function. Circular arrangements of stones like those at Stonehenge or the older Nabta Playa may have served as resonant cavities, collectors of telluric currents, or instruments for focusing specific frequencies of Earth's natural vibrations. Underground chambers, tunnels, and even complex subterranean networks found beneath many ancient sites, such as the extensive debated network under the Giza Plateau, the artificial caves in Peru and Turkey, or the subterranean cities like Derinkuyu, could have been designed not just for shelter or storage, but to interact with subterranean energies, create specific acoustic environments for ritual or healing, or serve as resonant chambers within a larger energetic system. The deliberate use of particular types of stone, such as granite, basalt, or quartz, which have piezoelectric properties, generating an electric charge when subjected to mechanical stress or vibration, could have been a conscious choice, selected for their ability to interact with and potentially manipulate energetic fields, acting as transducers or amplifiers. Theories of energetic architecture propose that these sites were far more than just places of religious worship, astronomical observatories, or defensive structures. They may have been complex functional instruments designed to function in harmony with, or even to harness and direct, the Earth's natural energetic pulse. Could the pre-flood builders, such as the hypothesized emerald builders of the Amazon, whose geometric earthworks altered the landscape on a massive scale, or the unknown architects of the meticulously planned structures found on submerged continental shelves and in deep-sea locations, have possessed a deep applied knowledge of geomancy, resonance, vibrational physics, and perhaps even a form of bioenergetic engineering? Could they have used this knowledge to create places of power capable of influencing consciousness, promoting healing, influencing local weather patterns, communicating over vast distances, perhaps through the Earth's energetic grid, or even interacting with non-physical realms or conscious entities? Some experimental archaeology, acoustic studies within megalithic structures, and measurements of localized energy fields have shown that specific frequencies or resonant sounds can be generated or amplified within certain ancient sites, creating unusual and sometimes disorienting acoustic or sensory effects. Could these structures have been used for complex rituals involving precisely controlled sound, vibration, light, and conscious intention, intended to create specific states of consciousness, facilitate communication with the other, or to interact with the Earth's frequency and energetic fields on a deeper level? The very concept of ancient cultures describing gods or powerful beings emerging from whirlwinds, spirals, or spinning disks could be interpreted as a metaphorical representation of powerful energetic phenomena that were part of their understanding and perhaps even their technology. If pre-flood civilizations truly understood how the Earth emanates energy, how this energy flows through unseen grids, and how it could be harnessed, directed, and tuned, then their cities and sacred sites may have been not simply places of dwelling, but integrated living entities meticulously tuned to the planet's rhythms. The concept of a harmonious city, built in conscious alignment with natural forces, energetic flows, and celestial cycles, stands in stark contrast to our modern urban landscapes, often seen as disconnected from, disruptive to, or even detrimental to the natural environment. The catastrophe of the flood, from this perspective, might have been more than just a physical inundation. It could have been a profound and violent disruption of this delicate energetic balance, a shattering of the tuned structures, and the catastrophic loss of the knowledge required to maintain this harmony. Exploring these energetic aspects of ancient architecture, while challenging to prove conclusively within the confines of conventional science, offers a fascinating and potentially terrifying possibility that we have lost not only the physical structures of a past world, but also a fundamental understanding of how to live in balance and harmony with the planet's unseen forces, a scientific and spiritual knowledge that may have been inherent in the energetic architecture of pre-flood civilizations. The terrifying thought is that this lost knowledge of resonance, energetic interaction, and the unseen power grid of the Earth might hold keys to both immense power and profound destruction, and that its rediscovery could come at a terrifying and unpredictable price, potentially unleashing forces that were deliberately contained or forgotten after a previous global catastrophe. Pre-flood biology, secrets of genetic engineering, extinct giants, unnatural beings, the manipulation of life itself, and the echoes in modern DNA. Stepping even further beyond the realms of stone, technology, energy, and consciousness, the mysteries of the pre-flood world may extend into the very fabric of life itself, suggesting a level of biological understanding, manipulation, and perhaps even creation that is both profound and potentially terrifying. The widespread myths of giants, such as the Nephilim mentioned in the Book of Enoch, the imposing Katski giants of the Caucasus, the massive Urka of Slavic folklore, and various other colossal beings described in folklore and ancient texts across Eurasia and beyond, are perhaps the most striking examples of biological anomalies attributed to this era. These are often not just tales of unusually large humans. They frequently describe beings of truly immense stature, possessing superhuman strength and sometimes unusual wisdom, abilities, or even physical deformities or unusual traits, like the moon-eyed people of Appalachian lore. But what if pre-flood civilizations, or the powerful beings who interacted with them, possessed knowledge of biology, genetics, and even bioengineering that far surpassed our current understanding, perhaps rivaling or even exceeding modern capabilities? The narratives of the Shining Ones, the Anunnaki, or sons of God taking human wives and begetting giants, could be interpreted not merely as a literal interbreeding of angelic beings and humans in a purely theological or mythological sense, but as a metaphorical or perhaps even a literal memory of an encounter between early humans and beings possessing a fundamentally different genetic makeup or advanced biological capabilities. These beings, whether originating from another dimension, a different evolutionary path, a highly evolved terrestrial species that had achieved a form of transcendence, or even another planet, might have had the knowledge and ability to manipulate genetics, leading to the creation of beings of immense size, altered physical characteristics, enhanced abilities, or other unusual traits. Could the Nephilim, whose widespread mythology precedes the flood in several traditions, and who are often depicted as destructive and tyrannical, have been the result of a deliberate genetic experiment, a hybrid species created for a specific purpose, perhaps as laborers, warriors, or even a ruling class? The ethical implications of such a possibility are inherently terrifying and raise questions about the origins of conflict and corruption in the pre-flood world. Beyond the giants, some out-of-place artifacts, ancient artwork, and mythological descriptions seem to portray creatures that do not fit neatly into the known taxonomy of Earth's life forms, or they depict known animals with unusual or exaggerated features that defy natural variation. The stylized, often hybrid, animal and anthropomorphic figures carved on the massive pillars at Göbekli Tepe, dating back to a period potentially preceding or immediately following the last ice age, prompt intense speculation among researchers about whether these represent real creatures from a forgotten epoch, symbolic representations of complex biological concepts, or even beings created through some form of ancient genetic manipulation or hybridization. The Indian myths of the Nagas, often depicted as powerful serpent-human hybrids dwelling underground or in water, and their deep association with ancient Indian dynasties, hidden knowledge, and the power of life itself, could be interpreted in a biological context, perhaps representing a distinct, intelligent species that coexisted with early humans, or even beings created through some form of ancient genetic engineering or hybridization, a terrifying blend of human and non-human biology. If pre-flood civilizations, particularly those that had contact with advanced beings, reached a high level of technological and scientific development, it is not unreasonable to consider that their inquiries extended into the realm of biology and the manipulation of life itself. They might have explored genetic manipulation, hybridization, the creation of bioengineered organisms for various purposes, labor, warfare, companionship, or even attempts to extend a lifespan, enhance physical capabilities, or adapt life forms to specific environments. This could help explain not only the sudden appearance of giants and other unusual creatures in the mythological record, but also the descriptions of beings with strange abilities or forms found in ancient texts and depictions. Furthermore, the possibility exists that traces of this pre-flood biological manipulation or interaction might still exist within the human genome itself. While currently in the realm of pure speculation, some fringe theories propose that unusual or unexplained segments of human DNA could be remnants of genetic material introduced by the cosmic pilgrims or resulting from the hybridization events described in ancient myths. Could there be genetic signatures of the Nephilim or other hybrid beings subtly influencing human biology or even behavior to this day? Of course, the vast majority of such stories are undoubtedly metaphorical, reflecting cultural beliefs, symbolic thought, and early attempts to understand the complexities of life and death. However, the persistent and widespread nature of these narratives, particularly those involving beings of unusual biological characteristics and the implication of deliberate creation or alteration of life, begs the question, is there a kernel of terrifying truth beneath the metaphor? What if the pre-flood world was not just inhabited by Homo sapiens, but was also home to beings created, altered, or coexisting with pre-flood civilizations in ways that today seem like pure fantasy? Perhaps pre-flood biology was not solely a product of natural evolution, but a result of deliberate intervention and manipulation of life itself, leaving behind only the faint, unsettling memory of extinct giants, unnatural beings, and the chilling, potentially ongoing implications of a forgotten science of biological control, the echoes of which might even be found in our own DNA. The terrifying thought is that our biological makeup might carry the silent, unrecognized legacy of a lost world's terrifying experiments. Pre-flood consciousness, altered states, mystical practices, the perception of reality, the lost pathways of the mind, and the trauma of the flood. The myths and legends surrounding pre-flood civilizations consistently describe their inhabitants, or the powerful beings who interacted with them, as possessing extraordinary wisdom, heightened intuition, unusual cognitive abilities, or the capacity to perceive and interact with aspects of reality that are largely invisible or inaccessible to the average modern human. From the shamans of various indigenous traditions who claim the ability to communicate with spirits of the land, enter altered states of consciousness to gain knowledge, heal, and travel to other realms, to the secretive priests and initiates of the Naacal Brotherhood said to possess profound, hidden knowledge of the universe and consciousness, and the shining ones who demonstrated an understanding of the cosmos, energy, and reality far beyond human capabilities. A recurring and profound theme emerges, a different, perhaps more developed, or at least a qualitatively different type of consciousness that existed in the pre-flood world. In the context of the vortex culture and its hypothesized understanding of Earth's subtle energies and their connection to celestial cycles, it is highly plausible that pre-flood societies developed specific practices, rituals, or utilized natural substances, like entheogenic plants found in many ancient cultures, to induce altered states of consciousness. The use of psychoactive plants in ancient rituals is a well-documented phenomenon across diverse cultures and time periods, often linked to seeking spiritual insights, healing, or communication with the divine. The presence of unusual symbols or artistic motifs that some interpret as representing psychedelic experiences or altered states of perception, like the complex geometric patterns seen in some ancient art or the vivid visions described in mystical texts, hints at this possibility. Could pre-flood civilizations have developed sophisticated techniques or utilized specific locations, perhaps related to their energetic architecture, built on energetic points, that allowed them to expand the boundaries of ordinary consciousness, to access information not solely through the five senses but through intuition, telepathy, clairvoyance, remote viewing, or other, currently unknown, modes of perception and information transfer? If the Shining Ones, or cosmic pilgrims, were indeed beings from another dimension, a different plane of existence, or a highly evolved state of being, their interaction with pre-flood societies might have involved a profound exchange of understanding, not just of physical laws or technologies, but of the very nature of reality, consciousness, and the multidimensional universe. They might have demonstrated ways to perceive or interact with multiple dimensions simultaneously, to communicate directly through thought, telepathy, or to access a deeper layer of universal knowledge or a collective consciousness that transcends individual minds. This could help explain the descriptions of their seemingly supernatural abilities and their role as teachers of esoteric or hidden knowledge. The catastrophe of the flood, from this perspective, might have been more than just a physical inundation. It could have been a profound trauma that resulted in a fundamental reset or severing of human consciousness from these broader perceptions and capabilities. The sheer terror, loss, and struggle for survival in a post-apocalyptic world could have forced humanity's focus onto the immediate, the material, and the tangible, causing a disconnection from the subtle energies and non-physical realms that were seemingly accessible to pre-flood societies. Perhaps the flood didn't just destroy cities, it may have fractured the human psyche, causing a collective amnesia regarding these higher states of consciousness and the pathways of the mind that led to them. The widespread yearning for enlightenment, mystical experiences, and a deeper connection to the universe and each other in various spiritual and philosophical traditions throughout history could be interpreted as an unconscious echo of this pre-flood state of consciousness. A faint, persistent memory of a time when humanity was more deeply connected to the unseen world and the full potential of the mind. Exploring the possibility of a different quality or expanded state of consciousness in the pre-flood world challenges our current materialistic and reductionist worldview and opens up a terrifying possibility that we have lost not only physical artifacts and technological knowledge, but also a fundamental capacity of the human mind itself, a capacity for perception, intuition, and connection that, if rediscovered, could profoundly alter our understanding of ourselves, the universe, and our place within it. The terrifying implication is that the flood didn't just drown cities and civilizations. It may have drowned our ability to fully perceive reality, leaving us blind to the very forces that might have shaped the lost world, and potentially making us vulnerable to forces we can no longer perceive or understand. The lost pathways of the mind, if real, represent a terrifying potential, both for profound understanding and for potential misuse, a forgotten legacy of a world that saw reality through fundamentally different eyes. Pre-flood astrology and cosmology, knowing the stars before written history, the cosmic calendar, the terrifying portents, and the shadow of cyclical catastrophe. While the tangible evidence of pre-flood civilizations is often elusive and debated, their apparent profound knowledge of the cosmos seems to have left a more enduring and, in some cases, decipherable mark, suggesting a terrifying level of understanding regarding not just the beauty of the night sky, but its potential for both creation and destruction. Megalithic observatories found across the globe at sites like Stonehenge in England, Nabta Playa in Egypt, dating back even further than Stonehenge, Karnak in France, and numerous sites in Europe, Asia, and the Americas demonstrate a remarkable level of precision in tracking the movements of the sun, moon, and specific stars and constellations. These structures were built long before the advent of widely accepted written records, suggesting that sophisticated astronomical observations were not only being made, but were also being meticulously recorded and preserved through the enduring medium of architectural alignment, stone placement, and geometric planning. The Nazca lines, as previously discussed, particularly the geometric figures and lines, may also have been intimately connected to astronomical observations, perhaps marking celestial events, charting star patterns, or serving as a vast, ground-based cosmic calendar and guide. The universal presence of myths describing cosmic pilgrims or shining ones who arrived with knowledge of the heavens further underscores the deep and potentially terrifying connection between pre-flood societies and the cosmos. Could pre-flood civilizations have possessed a more advanced or complete understanding of astronomy and cosmology than we currently credit them with? It is highly plausible, given the evidence, that they understood not only the basic cycles of the sun and moon, essential for agriculture and timekeeping, but also the complex movements of the planets, the cyclical nature of constellations, and perhaps even the phenomenon of the precession of the equinoxes, a slow wobble of the Earth's axis that causes the apparent position of the stars in the night sky to shift over a cycle of roughly 26,000 years. Observing and understanding precession would require continuous, accurate astronomical observations spanning millennia, suggesting a continuity of knowledge, a long-term perspective, and an advanced scientific methodology that is difficult to explain within conventional historical timelines. This advanced astronomical and cosmological knowledge could have been encoded not only in their architecture and the precise alignment of their structures, but also in their myths, their symbolism, their art, and perhaps even their languages, as hinted at in the discussion of lost languages. If they had contact with the Shining Ones or other non-terrestrial beings, Their understanding of the cosmos might not have been based solely on terrestrial observation, but on a deeper, potentially transmitted knowledge about the fundamental nature of the universe, the influence of planetary alignments, the interconnectedness of celestial and terrestrial events, and perhaps even the cyclical nature of cosmic and geological catastrophes. Pre-flood astrology and cosmology, in this light, may have been far more than simple superstition or primitive attempts to understand the heavens for practical purposes. They could have been a sophisticated applied system for understanding the intricate relationship between celestial bodies and earthly events, including the subtle energies described in the vortex culture, climatic cycles, geological activity, and even human affairs. Perhaps they used their advanced astronomical knowledge to predict or anticipate major Earth changes or cosmic events. Could they have foreseen or even predicted the catastrophe of the flood by observing significant changes in the cosmos, such as the passage of a large comet or asteroid, a dramatic shift in the Earth's magnetic poles or rotational axis, unusual solar activity, or other celestial portents? The widespread fear of certain celestial events in ancient cultures might be a distorted echo of a real, terrifying knowledge possessed by their pre-flood ancestors. The terrifying possibility emerges that pre-flood civilizations understood that catastrophic events are not random occurrences, but part of larger cosmic cycles. Their detailed astronomical observations and their sophisticated cosmic calendars may have revealed a pattern of cyclical catastrophe, perhaps linked to specific planetary alignments, cosmic alignments, or events occurring in the wider solar system or galaxy. If so, they may have not only predicted the flood, but also understood it as part of a larger, repeating pattern, casting a terrifying shadow over the future. The ruins of their observatories and the precise alignments of their structures stand as silent witnesses to a forgotten cosmic calendar, a terrifying reminder that the past is not just confined to Earth, but is intimately intertwined with the vastness of the universe and its potential for both creation and destruction. The true terror lies in the possibility that the cosmos holds keys to predicting or even understanding global catastrophes, and that this knowledge was possessed, feared, and then lost or deliberately hidden in the pre-flood world, leaving us potentially blind to the cyclical nature of the universe's destructive forces. The shadow of cyclical catastrophe, a terrifying possibility hinted at by their advanced cosmic knowledge, hangs heavy over the narrative of the lost world. The children of catastrophe, survivors, seeders, the guardians of fragmented knowledge, the weight of responsibility, the legacy of fear, and the silent watchers of the post-flood world. If a global flood or a series of devastating cataclysmic events did indeed occur and led to the widespread destruction of pre-flood civilizations, a crucial, ethically complex, deeply human, and ultimately terrifying question arises. What happened to the survivors, and what role did they play in shaping the post-flood world? Ancient myths, almost universally across diverse cultures and geographical regions, include narratives of a small number of individuals or groups who managed to endure the cataclysm, often through foreknowledge, divine intervention, or the aid of a benevolent or perhaps manipulative entity. The stories of Noah and his ark in the Abrahamic traditions, Utnapishtim building a boat in Mesopotamian texts, Manu in Hindu mythology, and Deucalion and Pyrrha repopulating the earth in Greek mythology are prominent examples. These survivors are typically portrayed as the last remnants of humanity or a previous race, tasked with repopulating the earth and becoming the progenitors of the new human races or civilizations that emerge in the post-flood world. But what if these survivors were not simply ordinary people facing an unimaginable disaster, but were representatives of the pre-flood civilizations? Perhaps scientists, priests, leaders, engineers, individuals with unique abilities, psychic, biological, or even beings who were not entirely human, carrying with them not only the will to survive, but also fragmented pieces of their advanced knowledge, unique heritage, and perhaps even terrifying secrets. The trauma of witnessing unimaginable destruction and the heavy burden of understanding what happened. The stories of the Shining Ones, the Anunnaki, the Devas, or other advanced beings withdrawing underground, to the heavens, to remote, inaccessible locations, or even to other dimensions after the flood, could indicate that a significant portion of these pre-flood societies or the beings who interacted with them did not completely perish, but rather retreated, altered their mode of existence to survive the new and harsh world, or went into hiding, perhaps establishing hidden enclaves, transferring their consciousness to other realms, or entering periods of hibernation or suspended animation. The Naacal Brotherhood, for example, is described in some esoteric accounts as deliberately dispersing across the globe after the destruction of their homeland, Mu or Lemuria, carrying their sacred knowledge and initiating new groups in different regions, acting as hidden guardians of ancient wisdom, maintaining a secret lineage of knowledge throughout history. The giants, if they were a distinct species or a result of biological manipulation, may have faced extinction, dwindled in number, or sought refuge in remote, mountainous, subterranean, or even other dimensional regions, becoming the subject of later legends, folklore, and sporadic sightings. The survivors of these pre-flood civilizations, whether fully human or something more, could have been the seeders, the uncredited architects, or the hidden influencers of the subsequent historical civilizations that emerged in places like Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, Mesoamerica, and South America. They may have been the mysterious teachers, guides, and culture bringers who appeared in various post-flood myths, possessing unusual knowledge and skills, imparting the foundational knowledge of agriculture, writing systems, astronomy, mathematics, architecture, organized law, and social structures to populations that were recovering from a global catastrophe and were potentially in a state of technological and societal regression or starting anew. This could help explain the seemingly sudden and sophisticated appearance of these early urban centers, which often seem to emerge almost fully formed with complex planning, engineering, and organizational structures that appear without a clear evolutionary precursor in the immediate archaeological record. Perhaps these early historical civilizations were not entirely self-generated, but were the children of catastrophe, receiving a vital, if fragmented and sometimes misunderstood, inheritance from a lost world. However, it is also highly plausible, and perhaps more terrifying, that the survivors were not just benevolent teachers, but also deliberate and cautious guardians of fragmented, potentially dangerous knowledge. Having witnessed the immense destruction brought about by, perhaps, the misuse of advanced knowledge, unchecked power, a fundamental imbalance with the planet and cosmic forces, internal conflict, or even geomantic warfare, they may have made a conscious and fearful decision to transmit only certain, carefully selected aspects of their heritage, while deliberately concealing, encoding in myths, symbols, architecture, or even actively suppressing the most powerful or dangerous secrets, like advanced energy technologies, biological manipulation, or knowledge of cyclical catastrophes. This could explain why so many ancient myths speak of forbidden knowledge, the dangers of seeking too much power, the fall of a golden age characterized by advanced abilities that were later lost or deemed too dangerous to possess, and the emphasis on living in harmony with nature in post-flood cultures. The survivors, bearing the heavy weight of responsibility for the catastrophe, whether directly caused by their actions or merely witnessed and understood, may have chosen to steer humanity onto a different, seemingly safer, and more primitive path, one that prioritized survival, rebuilding, and basic societal organization over the pursuit of advanced technology or a deep understanding of cosmic forces, fearing a devastating repeat of the past. This decision, born out of fear, trauma, and a profound understanding of the consequences of unchecked power, could explain the apparent technological and societal bottleneck or regression that follows the hypothesized pre-flood era. Furthermore, the terrifying possibility remains that some of these survivors, or their descendants, did not simply teach and then vanish. They may have chosen to become silent watchers of the post-flood world, observing humanity's development from hidden enclaves, like the legendary Agartha or Shambhala, remote locations, like parts of Antarctica or deep in the Amazon, or even from other planes of existence, occasionally intervening subtly or revealing themselves in ways that become the basis for later myths and legends, like the Dogon's account of the Nomo. Their story, often obscured by myth and folklore, is a terrifying possibility. That our civilization is built upon a foundation of carefully selected, deliberately fragmented knowledge, that we are being watched, and that the full scope of what was lost in the flood and what is still being guarded by the remnants of these survivors remains hidden, fundamentally shaping our present in ways we don't fully comprehend. The terrifying implication is that we may be living in a world where the most profound truths about our past, our potential, and the very nature of reality are being deliberately withheld or guarded, for reasons that are rooted in the terrifying, enduring legacy of fear left by a forgotten catastrophe. The silent watchers, if they exist, represent a profound and potentially unsettling continuation of the pre-flood world's influence into our present. The echo of pre-flood wisdom, encoded knowledge, enduring symbols, the planet's memory, the persistent longing for a lost golden age, the unseen currents of influence, and the unsettling quest for rediscovery. If pre-flood civilizations, potentially possessing advanced knowledge and capabilities, existed and were largely obliterated by a global catastrophe, the question of how any tangible or intangible trace of their knowledge, their wisdom, or even their memory could have possibly survived across vast stretches of time, geological upheavals in the ensuing dark age of chaos and rebuilding is perhaps the most profound, enduring, and ultimately motivating mystery. The answer, it seems, does not solely lie in easily readable historical records, which are conspicuously absent for this hypothesized period, but in the subtle, often cryptic, persistent, and sometimes terrifying echoes embedded within the very fabric of our world, our cultures, our myths, our symbols, our landscapes, and our collective consciousness. Pre-flood wisdom may have been deliberately encoded and preserved in forms that were inherently resilient to physical destruction, designed to endure beyond the lifespan of cities, empires, and even geological epochs. A form of planetary time capsule awaiting decipherment. Oral traditions, passed down through countless generations in cultures across the globe, are perhaps the most direct, albeit filtered, transformed, and often fragmented, link to this lost era. While subject to alteration, embellishment, and symbolic transformation over time and across cultures, the consistent presence of narratives about a great flood that wiped out an earlier, often more advanced age of humanity, about beings from the sky who interacted with humanity, sometimes benevolently, sometimes fearfully, about giants, and about a lost golden age characterized by peace, prosperity, profound knowledge, and harmony with nature, suggests a shared, deep-seated memory that predates written history and transcends geographical and cultural boundaries. These myths, often dismissed by conventional scholarship as mere folklore, cautionary tales, or allegories, may contain metaphorical, allegorical, or even symbolic accounts of real events, lost knowledge systems, and forgotten beings. Symbols and geometric patterns, found etched on ancient monuments, artifacts, and even the landscape itself across the globe, could constitute a form of universal language or code designed to transmit complex information across vast distances and through time. The recurring use of specific symbols, like the spiral, the circle, the sun disk, the tree of life, the serpent, the eye, specific geometric ratios, like the golden ratio, the proportions of ancient structures, and precise astronomical alignments on sites like the Nazca Plain, the enigmatic earthworks of North America, and megalithic structures worldwide could be intentional, carrying layered meaning related to cosmology, science, mathematics, physics, astronomy, energy as hinted at in energetic architecture, history, or even instructions for future actions or spiritual practices, waiting for a future generation with the necessary knowledge or intuition to rediscover the key to their interpretation. These symbols might represent not just abstract concepts, but fundamental scientific principles, cosmological understandings, historical events, or even instructions for technological or spiritual practices. Rituals and sacred practices often seemingly archaic, irrational, or purely symbolic to modern minds, could also encode ancient knowledge. Many traditional rituals are deeply connected to natural cycles, celestial events, and the energies of the earth. They may be enacting in a symbolic, performative, or even energetic form ancient understandings of how to interact with the planet, with consciousness, or with unseen forces. The widespread practice of geomancy, the art of aligning structures and practices with Earth's energy currents, found in diverse cultures, could be a fragmented, distorted, or simplified version of the energetic architecture practiced by the pre-flood world, a form of embodied knowledge passed down through practice rather than text. Its original scientific basis forgotten, but its effects still intuitively sought. Furthermore, the very Earth itself may hold a form of memory. As suggested by the vortex culture and the concept of energetic architecture, certain locations, geological formations, or even crystalline structures within the Earth might retain a resonance, an energetic signature, or even a form of information storage from the activities of pre-flood civilizations. The stones used in megalithic structures, with their potential energetic properties, could also serve as passive reservoirs of information or resonance, humming with the faint echo of their original purpose. The deep layers of the Earth, the vast expanse of the ocean floor, as explored in the discussion of submerged cities, and the possibility of subterranean realms like Agartha or Shambhala may contain not only physical remnants of past civilizations, but also subtle energetic imprints, conscious entities from that era, or even deliberately hidden repositories of knowledge. Some theories propose that pre-flood civilizations, or the powerful beings who guided them, consciously anticipated the catastrophe and took deliberate, far-reaching steps to preserve their knowledge for a future time when humanity might be ready to receive it without destroying itself. This could involve encoding information in myths and symbols, burying caches of artifacts in strategic and protected locations, perhaps those locations with unique energetic properties, or even embedding knowledge within the genetic code or the collective unconscious of humanity, making it accessible through intuition, dreams, altered states of consciousness, spontaneous flashes of insight, or through deliberate spiritual or scientific practices. This suggests the terrifying possibility of unseen currents of influence, a subtle, ongoing interaction between the remnants of the pre-flood world and the present, guiding or influencing humanity in ways we do not recognize. This echo of pre-flood wisdom is perhaps the most compelling and simultaneously the most terrifying aspect of this entire exploration. It suggests that a vast, profound, and potentially transformative body of knowledge about the universe, consciousness, the manipulation of energy and life, the cyclical nature of catastrophe, and humanity's place within it was not entirely lost, but rather exists in a fragmented, often disguised, and frequently inaccessible form, waiting for us to rediscover it. The fact that we are instinctively drawn to these mysteries, that these myths and symbols resonate with us on a deep, almost instinctual level, and that there is a persistent, universal longing for a lost golden age characterized by peace, knowledge, and harmony, might be a testament to this enduring echo, a deep-seated, perhaps even genetic or collective, memory of a time when humanity's potential was far greater and its understanding of the universe far more profound. The exploration of pre-flood civilizations, therefore, is not just an academic pursuit or a search for lost artifacts. It is, at its core, a quest for this lost wisdom, a profound and potentially dangerous undertaking to hear the faint, persistent, and sometimes terrifying whispers from a forgotten past, and to understand what they might tell us about who we are, where we came from, and what terrifying possibilities, both creative and destructive, lie dormant within the hidden history of our planet, our own potential, and the unseen currents of influence that may still connect us to a world that was drowned but not entirely silenced. The terrifying reality is that the keys to understanding our present, unlocking our potential, and perhaps even predicting or mitigating future catastrophes might be found in deciphering the enduring, unsettling, and powerful echo of a lost, terrifying, and potentially far more advanced civilization. The quest for this echo is a quest for self-knowledge and a confrontation with the terrifying possibility that our current state is one of profound forgetting.